Just another quick video. Hi there, hi. It's Artivix Rob. People have been wanting to know my settings for my DJI Pocket 3 and my DJI 2 mics. So I captured this. It's in my Zettelkasten, but I want to make a quick little video as I have been doing recently. So I'm just writing these out. I'm not going to do anything fancy with the video and show you how to set it. I'm just going to talk about it, and you can go do the research to figure it out. Okay. So the first thing, and this is a really important one. This is the reason I started doing this, is because I accidentally changed my exposure settings and started having problems with too dark conditions. And then the reason I got the Pocket 3 in the first place was this really amazing low light. Um, and so I'm pretty sure if you look at this video now and you compare it to the other videos I've made, these conditions are more or less the same. This is my preference. So somebody else is going to have another preference for here. So the first one is EV exposure, and a lot of people in other videos have recommended negative 0.3. I actually like it a little bit darker, slightly darker, so a little bit 1.3. This works indoors for me here. This is the EV setting. If you change this, you'll see the ISO though is the one that really changes how washed out your stream is. Um, in fact, I'm doing the ISO speed. ISO speed goes back to the old school when actually film existed and people had actual ISO speeds on their film. And 800 was generally considered to be, not as grainy. These things turn out to be more about how washed out the overall image tends to be. If you can go all the way up to 50 to 6400 here. I personally like 50 to 800, which means that um, if if it's darker than it is in this room right now, I don't want to be filming. I generally don't want to be filming. If I had to though, so let's say I was doing like a fireside thing or whatever, I could set it to 50 to 1600. You can go all the way up to 6400. And by the way, that's a range, right? So if you set it on auto mode, it will still navigate back and through that. And that was a little confusing for me when I first started using it. I was like, and when you're on there, by the way, when you have that selection shown, it will actually show you the number. It'll vary between a certain range. But by changing the range in which you can vary, it overall changes the look. And I found last night I was outdoors and I was like, why is the thing so dark? I can't get the planets and Jupiter like I was doing with my Pocket 3 last time. And so I set it to, I think, 3200. And I went home and everything. And I came here and plugged it in to do this stream here because I used it for, I used my Pocket 3 for this right here. And I use it on IRL. I just disconnect it, put it in my rig. I mean, it's a $520 camera. I'm not going to, have two of them. I guess I could if I was rich or something. So that was when I realized, damn, I'm really washed out. My face is even more washed out than usual. So I set it back to 50 to 800. So I'm spending a lot of time on those two settings because they're not immediately obvious, and you're going to want to tweak them and look at your own footage and stuff. You can see the preview on the screen, thank God, but still, that's something you probably want to get done before you do it. I personally think those are some of the most important settings to have, and I'm going to go rush through the other settings. So automatic white balance, for sure. The important thing to know about white balance is, and this people forget this all the time. I actually have seen other streamers screw this up. So what they'll do is they'll set automatic white balance and then they'll accidentally brush their screen with their finger, and wherever you touch on the screen will become both the focal point if you have single mode focus, which we'll get to. But it also sets the white balance and exposure based on that section of the screen. So that is, if you don't know what I'm saying, let me show you what I mean. So if I can actually, even in webcam mode, I can touch like the light in the back, and I can touch the light up there. See that I tapped on the light up in the corner, right? So I've seen people screw this up. They have automatic white balance. I'm like, well, your stuff looks like crap. It's probably because you tapped your screen. Now that's me. I just tapped my face again, so it does the thing. So make sure you don't tap your screen, right? And there have been streams that are yellow, and there's all kind. Are you talking about the really really old ones, where I was really yeah? That was me setting my white balance by myself. So I mean, auto white balance is always better, um, in my opinion now, especially when it's calculated intelligently for you based on the point on the screen. But be very 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 careful with the Pocket 3. I have seen people, and I have screwed up myself. I have screwed up my shot in my entire stream multiple times by just brushing my finger on the screen on accident. And there's a couple other ways that you can screw that up, and I'm going to talk about. So the first one is, as I just said, accidentally touching some section of the screen. When you're in when you're in single, what do I want to say? Single focus mode. Um, is that it? Why don't I have it on here? I need to add that. It's like, what is it called? Yeah, it's called focus mode. Okay, we'll do focus mode then. Focus mode. So focus mode is single. Uh, let's see, single for car, continuous rest. All else or something. Okay, so this is actually really important. Um, so the automatic white balance you know about already. This focus mode, which thank God you can set this from webcam mode. So many of these settings you can't set from webcam mode. You have to set them in advance. So like face follow and stuff like that. By the way, face follow is really cool, but I don't recommend it if you're going to be doing IRL streaming. So anyway, so what is focus mode? So by focus mode, by swiping the side of the camera, you can tap focus mode, and there's 3 focus modes. There's single, which is fixed based on where you tapped. Continuous, which always puts whatever continuous will like try to do the right thing. It'll try to grab whatever's in the foreground. And then you have another one called product mode, which favors this. So I don't know if you noticed, but it does take quite a while for it to kind of see that it's got something up front, right? Well, if I turn it into that product focus mode, it tends to assume the thing in the foreground is, I mean, it changes the algorithm, right? It makes it one. I don't use that if I were ever doing like mechanical things. And I somebody was saying the other day, or this morning actually, that there's a mechanic who does streaming with the focus mode, and so yeah, so that focal length gets changed. You can see all my calluses and my horrible, wrinkly old man skin, and they come back and it goes back, right? So that is the thing. You can't turn field of view off on the Pocket 3. If there's one thing about the Pocket 3 versus the Action 4 that is really distinctly different, that takes some getting used to, there's no such thing as infinite focal length, infinite field of view, infinite focus. You only get cinematic focusing, which means even if you go into single mode, you've got to decide, what do I want my camera to focus on. So you put it into single mode, like if you're in the car or something, and you make sure to tap something. In my case, if you're putting it in like the headrest, you need to tap something on the other side of the window, and it will, assuming there's no dust on your window, it will, or pollen, it'll fix on the thing out there, and then you get kind of a blur in the foreground. I've seen other streamers do this with cycling. I actually really debated about whether I wanted handlebars in the shot, and one of the reasons I was like thinking I didn't maybe want the Pocket 3 was because you can't have the handlebars be in focus at the same time as the trail. You can't. You got to pick one or the other, and at a certain point, I thought that might have been a deal breaker for the focus for the Pocket 3, but for me, it turned out to be not a problem. Just so you know, I polled my community, and my specific community does not want to see the handlebars. They're okay with it not being in the shot. They find it distracting, and watching the only time having handlebars in the shot is interesting is if you're doing really technical single track, and the focus of the content is not the environment, but it's your ability as a mountain biker or whatever. Those are fantastic. People do downhills, and they have their handlebars show up and everything. In my case, the occasional handlebar shot or the shot of a wheel when I come off a jump or something is enough to give this sense of presence without overwhelming the shot by literally giving up the entire bottom, third of your frame to handlebars. And so I personally, this I'm just mentioning this at this time, but I'm personally not a fan of handlebars in the shot. And I, a lot of you don't know this, but I have a little extender thing that goes off of my chest, so it's not capturing my arms even in wide angle mode. It just captures a little bit of the front on occasion, and and when combined with the gimbal mode of tilt lock, which we'll get to, it makes sure that I get more. It's more about being in that spot than it is being on a bike in that spot, and being on a bike is kind of secondary in my case. So anyway, focal length. Um, so so focus mode, single for the car continuous. Don't forget to click on the right thing and be really, really careful. As I said, I have seen bike streamers accidentally tap their screen. They were trying to get handlebars in the shot, and I've seen them accidentally tap their screen, which is so freaking easy. They've accidentally tapped their screen, and they've blown out the entire focus. And so the only thing that it focuses on, in one case, they accidentally tapped on the handlebars, and the entire shot was out of focus. And it took their community telling them, "Hey, we can't see anything," to fix that. I would rather not have that ever be the case. And so by positioning positioning it properly and making sure the angle is correct, you can either be absolutely sure. Now, the reason that I use continuous for bike streaming, why don't I not just, set the focal length out there? The reason that I like it is because I'm regularly um, stopping, or I'm pulling up my water bottle and you get a cinematic shot of me taking a hot water bottle, or at the end of the stream I'm grabbing my phone and I'm sticking my phone right in front of the Pocket 3 while I'm looking through the map. If I did not have continuous mode, I could not have these extremely tight shots that allow people to see what I'm doing on my phone, or sometimes I'll pull my Garmin up and I'll, hey, here's my Garmin results, or more importantly, I have a map, like a map of a mountain bike trail. It's out in paper and I can pull the paper up, or I stop and I want to get, look at the menu and I pull the menu up, or a beer, or some donuts from Mina, whatever it is. There's always that cinematic element that is going to be in one of my streams. So I like continuous mode, and just making sure that the main focus is whatever's in the distance. That's a lot of talk about that, but I think focus mode is one of the most important decisions that any IRL streamer will make. So hopefully that will give them that kind of thing. The downside of it is that if you accidentally tap, so another warning here, it's not listed officially, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. The bottom left corner of the screen will rotate your camera. And every single streamer I have seen who uses the Pocket 3 has done this live. Every single one accidentally taps that thing and they're like, what the hell? Next stream, cleavage stream, nose stream, because the gimbal will go and it turns around and it faces right at you, right? So let's actually move. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Gimbal startup direction. So make sure you set your gimbal startup direction to default. To forward. And did I do that right? No, actually, I think you want it to be back. Yeah, it's in selfie mode. I'm sorry. It depends on how you're carrying your camera. In my case, it's the biggest annoyance of the thing is I can't see the screen, even though I have an extension off my chest. I could see the screen if the mount was right. So I'm actually looking for another mount to flip it around so I can hold the gimbal as I would if I were walking around and I can see the screen while I'm biking. But I can't do that right now. I have to kind of look over and see the screen, or like take it out and look at the screen. I can't look at the screen while I'm doing it. Super annoying. So stay tuned for that. I might get that figured out at some point. But the but by default I have the gimbal start direction as backer away from me, right? And but I've seen people tap that, they brush that little thing. I've done it at least 5 times, maybe 10, and all of a sudden the camera's pointing at my rather wrinkly neck, and because I have continuous on, it zooms in. Like the skin, is like high. It's like very disturbing. So just be really careful you don't touch that, because I've seen people do it. The other thing that people always tap and touch on accident is the God, what's it called? What's it called? I forget the name of it now. It's the focus thing, and I don't see that. I don't see it on there. I guess I missed it. But there. I'll have to put that in here. Oh, we'll just put it. What do we want to say? Focus mode. No, what is it called? It's the thing on the right. Right thing. Right thing default. I don't know what it's called. I think it's called. Anyway, you want it to default to, in my case, zoom. Right, because, and this is the other thing I tap all the time. I've seen other people do this too. Literally the same streamer who had the same problem with the whole rotating thing. They tapped. It was funny because I was chuckling to myself because everybody does it. They tapped on accident again. They brushed their screen and they tapped that little like right section, and they changed their gimbal joystick mode. That's what it is. Joystick mode. They changed their gimbal joystick mode. I think it's called joystick mode. They changed the joystick mode to focus, and so they're on their bike and they're trying to get their, you have to tweak it a little bit to get it so that it's got the shot centered and everything, and you're kind of tweaking it, right? And while they're tweaking it, it's like, okay, the gimbal's not moving, and then you preview your screen and you're like ultra zoomed in. And everyone's like, whoa, extreme zoom. And then usually you go to change it and you accidentally hit on the thing that rotates the gimbal, and now you're ultra zoomed in on your neck. And you're like, what the hell? And you can't see the screen because the screen has been rotated in front of you because that's how the mount works. It's kind of frustrating. And so you end up having to kind of guess on the screen. In my case, I have to go, okay, I know if I tap right here on the screen, I have a good chance of it not doing it. But you don't know if you're zoomed out or not. It's a real pain in the butt. So just be really, really careful not to accidentally tap that section, right? And if anybody figures out how to actually have it so the screen is visible, so I can actually look down and see the screen. Another reason I want to flip the cage around is I don't like people seeing the screen. Some people like that, and sometimes I guess there's some advantage to having the screen in the front in your chest like Superman, so people seeing you, they see the screen, they can see themselves on there. They can see them, they can kind of watch and monitor themselves while they're like, hey, look at me, and they can see they're being streamed. But if you want to be stealthy at all, people have suggested to like turn it down to 0. You can't turn the screen off. But I think a better solution there would be to find or even 3D print if I want to, I might find one, is to rotate the entire camera around, get one of those extenders that comes off of your chest, so that the camera is actually sticking out of you like a little. It actually, the shadow looks like, with a USB cable coming off of it, it looks like the monster from Alien coming out of your chest. It's got like a little head rotating around and a little tail, and it's like, yeah. It's like you're driving around this like little monster, like off your because you look at my shadows and my WODs and you'll see. But the point is that there's really no reason that that mount has to be that way. So I'm working on a way to rotate the mount around so I can see the screen for multiple reasons. The first reason is I don't want to accidentally brush the screen. You can't lock the screen. I wish I could find a way to lock the screen by holding down a button or something, so that the screen, if I touched it, it wouldn't do anything, like you can with the Action and you can with the Garmin and pretty much everything, right? There's no method for that. So I'm constantly brushing the screen. I actually don't. I feel like if I rotated the Pocket 3 around, that I would be brushing the screen much less, because I'm doing things in front of it. And if I did touch the screen, it would be something more intense. If the screen contacts my body at some point, that's a bad thing. So I'm still working on that. Stay tuned. We'll figure that out. But the rest of the settings are pretty straightforward. I finally decided to do mono sound. The reason I decided to do mono sound is because it gives an extremely a couple advantages. One of them I was not planning on. So when I was doing stereo before, and I still okay, so you can set if you this is something that only the Pocket 3 does. On the Pocket 3, if you have you can set up. In my case, I put up two DJI mics right here, DJI Mic 2s, and they're both on at the same time, and you get this really amazing stereo immersive effect. You get something like that same effect by not using the mics and just using the internal sound from the Pocket 3. If you have all set, which is what is right here, directional audio all. If you set directional audio to all and you want to recharge your DJI Mic 2s, or you just are in an environment where you want to maybe capture some immersive stuff, but you have everything else set to audio, set to auto by default, you might want to do that. Uh, I I I think you would also have to change this to stereo if you wanted to get that effect. Now, I think I'm going to change this one. I'm going to leave this one stereo. Let me tell you why. Because when you have it as stereo, then when it's the camera, if it's just the camera will be in stereo. But when you do a DJI Mic 2 and you set it on a transmitter, it automatically just picks up mono because that's the only channel, and it defaults over to mono. So I think I've just decided to change that back to stereo because I'm pretty sure that by putting that to mono, that would force my camera with all of its directional audio to be mono, which defeats one of the most amazing features of the camera, which is this really hot. By the way, the internal mic for the Pocket 3 is very hot. It's a hotter mic. It's a brighter mic than the DJI Mic 2s in stereo mode, if we put both of them, or many of the other mics. So just be really careful. I've checked some of my VODs before. I was just making waffles, and I was using the default the mic, and it was really, really loud. And I mean, you could hear everything. So I would say you can set that down. I don't have a setting for that yet because I don't use it that much. Um, I found that even though it's nice and it's convenient to use the mic from the camera, um, even then, any using the mic from the camera is always a bad idea usually because you can't get the mic position perfect, and a lot of times you'll get the artifacts that'll come in through the cable. Even if the cable is, and that's what low cut's for. Low cut is that really, 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 really low bass, and if you turn a low cut filter on, you're going to lose a lot of really interesting, wonderful, immersive bass. But you're also going to get, you're not going to get as much of the sound noise. The Action 4, by the way, see this here? See this Action 4 that I have cabled up to use USB. I actually put the dead cats. I took them off of the different mic inputs there, and I thought, oh damn, this is going to be as good as a Sony mic for doing everything, and I don't have to have a separate mic for it. Turns out that's not true. Just the cable connection is enough to give really annoying, deafening, low cut, bass vibrations to the camera mic. And so, I mean, generally speaking, you want to have a mic, a separate mic, a mic that's wireless, a mic that's got a dead cat on it, no matter what. Everybody does it from GCN to, on down the line. Everybody who's doing any kind of recording, especially on a bike, is usually doing mono, and they're doing it with a dead cat, and they're doing it in some cases with wind reduction on top of all of that. Which brings me to some of the coolest stuff in the DJI lineup that ever existed, that I have not made full use of, but I plan on using that. So let's put the image adjustment down here. Okay, so the wind reduction off. Okay, the reason you want wind reduction off is because when wind reduction is on, you sound horrible. I mean, seriously, it makes you sound like you're a tinny, even on mono. You're like totally. Oh, thanks for this. You're like totally over in another planet. So wind reduction is off. But here is the super amazing thing about this. So even with wind reduction off, this I'm gonna zoom in for this because it's so cool. So the DJI mic only. This does not work with the Rode mic or anything else. This is only with the DJI Mic 2. The DJI Mic 2. If you tap the power button, remember the DJI Mic. Go look one up. The DJI Mic 2. I have one somewhere, but I don't. Not right here with me. Um, it has like three buttons. It has a link button, it has a power button, and it has a record button. And the record button's got a little orange circle on it. I mean, you can easily tell them. And we won't get into what all the other buttons do, but the most important thing that I'm talking about here is that, so let's say you're going down, you're in a descent, right? You're in a descent, or you're in like a really serious freaking headwind. And it's so much so that your community is like, wow, that's a lot of wind noise. And you have your dead cat on there and everything, and you've done everything in your power to prevent wind noise without losing sound quality. And you're like, damn, okay, I need just a little bump here because this is really, 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 really bad wind. Well, all you have to do is tap the power button, and the light on the mic will turn to yellow, which means that you're in wind reduction mode. And then when you get out of that really intense windy scenario, you can tap it again and it will take you out of wind reduction mode. How cool is that? And I'm really spending a lot of time on this because for an IRL streamer, especially a bike IRL streamer, that is ridiculously useful. I mean, that is like so totally useful, and it's just like little feature that somebody's always adding as kind of an antidote to everything else. Like, oh, hey, there's a cool thing here. No, that's like a major thing. In fact, that's actually such a cool thing all by itself that would almost tilt the scales for me to buy a DJI Mic 2 instead of a Rode Pro. The other reason you would buy a DJI Mic 2, do I need to say it? No receiver required. So if you haven't heard this yet, the DJI Mic 2 transmitters, which cost you $100, that's it, automatically pair with the Pocket 3 and the Action 4. Let me say that again. There is no receiver required. You don't have any thing sticking off the USB thing. You don't have anything burning up your USB port, which you need, by the way, for USB-C to the video to go out. So that is so freaking cool. You don't have battery issues to deal with, right? So you can actually have, so if you buy the mic set, you can have two mics that both last for about 4 hours, and then you can combine them, and you get about 8 to 10 hours of mono audio. And if you're judicious with your use of the camera mic as well, say during breaks and the coffee stops and everything, you have no problem. You don't have to even charge your mics. You're going to be able to take those mics and not even think about it. And once again, if you're an IRL streamer, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is why it's so important. So speaking of battery length, I don't have any objective evidence for this yet, but yesterday I streamed with one mic for 5.5 hours. And when I had two mics in stereo mode, both of those mics died after about 3.5 hours. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is. Maybe the mics didn't charge. I've noticed I had to kind of unplug and plug back in my little charging station. Maybe they weren't fully charged. Maybe they gave up on their charge. Maybe the mic was closer, so it didn't have to burn up as much Bluetooth. I have no idea why, but for some reason, and I'm going to continue to test this, having it in mono mode, which might be the reason, allowed that mic to last longer. It could be that I accidentally turned on record mode by for some stupid reason. I don't know why, but anyway, I got 5.5 hours out of one mic, so I was able to do an entire 80 kilometer stream, bike stream, 4.5 something hours with just the one mic. And I never had to go to the other one in my pocket and swap them out, which you can do live, by the way. You just turn the one off, turn the other one on, tap the link button, and now you have your other mic is now taking the place. As long as it was originally paired with it, it'll see it. In fact, I don't even think you need to originally pair. I think you can just take a new one out. You just have to remember to tap the link button, which I was forgetting to do. I bought an extra transmitter, so I have 3 of them now. Because I thought that was going to help me extend my life, and I wanted to have extended stereo life. I want to be able to, swap both of them in. Just so you know, I don't do stereo. I may return to doing stereo bike streams again by default. It is kind of cool to hear the cars going past you in stereo and stuff like that. So I might do that, but mostly I'm not going to do that unless there's a real, unless I'm walking around or I'm in a town where there's a lot of ambient noise and stuff like that. Most of the time when I do a bike stream, people just want to hear what the conversation is about, and they want to hear the birds. And the birds tend to be mono anyway because whatever. So directional audio, all there's three mics in the DJI Pocket 3, one on the top and one on the left, front and back, and left and right or something. And I know there's at least three mics. There might be more. That allows it to get input from all of that. Image adjustment default. So there's some interesting things you can do on the image adjustment with regard to sharpness and stuff. I actually, a lot of people recommend doing sharpness -2. I recommend against that. And the reason is because I actually tested sharpness -2 and the whole cinematic autofocus thing where you bring a menu up and put it in front of you, or I'm standing in front of like a mountain bike trail map, and there's a considerable distance between the camera and the map, and I noticed that if you turn the sharpness down, yes, it's true that it makes it softer. It probably makes it less data to send, and slightly better overall, but I've noticed that it makes it impossible to read detailed text. And so as an IRL streamer, I think you should leave it at 0 personally, and which is just a default. Some people will probably want to do a -2, but I don't want that. And I mean, even just putting my hand up like this, I noticed that people couldn't see the my dirty fingernails, my wrinkles in my fingers and stuff, paper cuts, calluses and all that. But the point is, when it comes to IRL streaming, you want people to be able to read the beer labels and the menus and the map. And if you turn that sharpness down, you're going to lose one of the greatest things about the Pocket 3. The variable focal length thing of the Pocket 3 enables, for the first time ever in any of my streams in 4 years, people watching my stream can actually read, for better or worse. Sometimes it's very dangerous. Like if I accidentally include a credit card or something in the shot, they can read that thing, no problem. They can read the license plates on the car in front of me. They can read, what I'm saying? It's very, very detailed, to the point where, you got to be careful of it. But that's better for immersion in IRL stream because people are helping you pick from the menu or whatever, and you can just say, what do you guys think? As opposed to reading the menu off to them. It's actually a really great advantage for an IRL streamer. Those are considerations for live streaming that obviously don't apply to cinematic photography or even vlogging in general. For some people who want a more cinematic experience, but for me, hell yeah, I want that. Where should we go on the map today? And I point my finger, and I don't have to interpret the map for them or tell them where to go download the map for themselves so they can read it. I don't have to, you know what I mean? I can actually show them straight up what's on there. And that's just really, really, really cool. So keep going. We're almost done. Frame rate. So this is a very controversial one. 24 frames a second is the cinematic setting for Hollywood. 24, 25 frames a second. That's why it exists. It's deliberately slow so that it produces motion blur. When Hollywood is considered, the Pocket 3 does a good job of that. I am not a videographer or a cinematographer. I am just a guy with a camera. But I have noticed that, so my reason for setting 1080p 24, a couple of reasons. First one is, according to all the chat, even though webcam mode will do 1080p 60 on the Pocket 3, which it will not do on the Action 4, by the way. I'm told that the Bellovox software that I use, as well as the LiveView Solo Pro, will not do 60 frames a second. So the input video, unless you're doing HDMI in, and I know a few people that are doing that, and it's a horrible idea, and I will come back to it. Why not HDMI? Okay, fine. We'll talk about it now. The reason that HDMI is bad for IRL live streaming, particularly active streaming, is because you must have an external extra device to do it. to do the encoding. Now, thankfully, the Bella Box Orange Pi Pro has a built-in encoder. You don't have to pay for that really finicky, broken, power-hungry Elgato encoder that you use with all the Gunrunner stuff with the AS300. You know, if you're using an AS300 Gunrunner pack, yeah, 2018 wants their IRL solutions back. Really old. I see a whole bunch of streamers lately, particularly some very wealthy YouTubers doing streams, and they're using these ancient, things, and they're bragging about their sponsorships and everything. And I'm just shaking my head saying, you guys are so far behind technology-wise. I mean, their technology is really, really outdated. I mean, is the action is it? We're not gonna have that debate right now. Should you use the Sony AS300 in 2024? Hell no. People do though. People still do. But they're sponsored by whatever. I'm not gonna slam the sponsor. The sponsor might actually get a clue eventually. Who knows? But anyway, so why not HDMI out from your camera? Because we have UVC now, and DJI is the only company that offers that. Now, it's got glitches, a couple glitches but the glitches are nothing. They're definitely worth all of the other things that are taken care of. But one of the glitches is that they have capped 1080p 30, right? So in UVC, so Bella Box, actually, let me rephrase this. There's a bunch of things here. So if for some reason you are converting from UVC, which is already encoded and compressed, which is kind of silly, into HDMI, which can then just be recompressed, which is what a lot of streamers are doing right now who have a action cam, a DJI cam. The only way they can do that is they have to send I've talked about this before. They send their UVC USB cable into a third-party device, which inflates it into an HDMI, and then they have an HDMI out that goes into the Bella Box or into something else, right? Actually, in that case, it's a LiveView Solo Pro, which is what you should never, ever, ever, ever buy a LiveView Solo Pro. It's an absolutely idiotic decision in 2024 for live streaming because it does not allow UVC mode, which means you can't use any of the DJI products directly. You have to have a middle piece, which is stupid. Bella Box doesn't need that. The Orange Pi Pro has, if you need HDMI encoding, so say I got another camera, it plugs right into it. And I've done other videos on all of this stuff. I don't want to get into it, but it's so important that people that are buying equipment right now make sure they don't buy the wrong equipment, because you can soak $2,000 and still have crap because you have these intermediate pieces you have to have, and you have all these points of failure. And just don't do that. Just buy the DJI Pocket 3 and buy an Orange Pi Bella Box and put the UVC directly into the thing, and you'll have longer battery life. You'll have less hassle. The occasional Mario or Minecraft mode. But anyway, so 1080p, what am I talking about with the 1080p? The 1080p is far more than enough. My bandwidth got throttled because I ran out because of unlimited bandwidth here on Verizon, and I set it to 720p 24, and I was able to stream mountain biking stuff with very little thing. Those streams are the quality is absolute crap, but it's still not 100% artifact. So you can stream in extremely low. You can do that if you want to. It's actually not horrible to stream in 720, but 1080p P24. Why P24? So let's talk about P24 again. The reason is not just because you get the cinematic motion blur. The number one reason that I stick with 24 frames a second is because I'm sending much less data over the wireless connection. And if you're an IRL live streamer and you live and die by how much data you can send over that connection, then having fewer frames per second, even if that means there might be, a little bit more blur or something, is way better than not having the encoding, right? Because then you get like tons of, you thought blur was bad, right? If you can't send the entire frame, and the encoding, and it has to do more encoding than can be sent over the wire, your quality is gonna be so bad you're not even gonna know. So by having 24 frames a second, I can get away with 5,000 kilobits per second. Whereas if I wanted super high quality at 60 frames a second, I would want to be streaming at 12,000 kilobits per second and have it downgraded to 6 or so to send it up to Twitch, right? So, but by having 24 frames a second, I am If anything, I'm never exceeding that amount. And I have yet to test some of the mountain bike streams, but we're gonna try that. I still think we probably on the Bella box. I probably will send even at 24 frames a second. I will probably still crank up my bandwidth to the maximum that I can send at 10 to 12,000. So then it can be downsampled by Bella box and sent up. But then you should get higher quality. I have already tested this and I know it's true. The only problem with that is if you don't know that you're going to have a very high mobile signal, depending on where you are in mountain biker land, then you risk more significant artifacts when you hit a spot that doesn't have it, because it's all of a sudden it's going to try to be sending 8,000 because it got used to it, and all of a sudden it's going to have nothing, and you'll get a huge gray screen because it can't do it. All of a sudden it got the plug pulled out from it. So it's kind of an art to kind of guess what the bit rate value should be on your Bella box based on streaming conditions that you're in. And if you know that you're going to have some significant F spots, it's probably better to err on the lower side and go all the way down even to 1,000 or 720 or something like that. And you can do that while it's running, because then the algorithm in Bella box is not going to break your stream by trying to do more than that and being denied. When it tries to do more than that and it gets denied, then you get gray and nobody can see anything. They can't hear you and potentially get an F. But if you don't try, right? If you don't try, then you don't have. This is also the reason that I hate no-albs, and that's a very controversial opinion. But no-albs, you have to hard code what those things are, and in order to change your scenes, which are bouncing all the time. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So 1080p is the way to go here, and then the 24, and then that just stays the same, and then in your encoder, in my Bella box encoder, I have that also set to 1080p 24. Make sure you set that. If you don't, it'll try to send the higher one. And so that's explicitly done. Only a few cases I might change it to 720 if I'm in really bad streaming conditions, like on a really remote trail. But so far, 1080p with 24 frames, and then messing with the slider depending on how well I'm able to stream. Like if I'm getting a lot of artifacts, I'll turn it down from 5,000 to whatever, and mess with it that way. And that can all be done dynamically. So, all right. So the next, screen rotation. Obviously, lock your screen rotation in landscape mode. If you fall or you go sideways or something like that, you might end up accidentally streaming from the other perspective, which is lame. I mean, I think the default is if you flip the thing, it'll actually change the portrait mode. You never want to do that. Some of you might want to stream in portrait mode. I don't. So anyway, screen rotation, gimbal lock mode. So I saw somebody just recently who does not have their gimbal lock set right. If you do not set tilt lock on your gimbal mode, when you look up, like if you're biking, if you're leaning over and you look up and you look down, the gimbal will follow you. And I suppose some people might want that, but I cannot tell you how many times I've seen somebody like sit completely up, they sit completely up to take a rest or something like that, and the gimbal shoots the camera straight up to the moon, so they're looking at the sky. I saw somebody do that for probably an hour and a half the other day. So set tilt lock. Tilt lock says I'm going to lock the horizon. I'll go this way back and forth. I'll go back and forth this way, but this way, no. I'm going to lock to the horizon as best I can. And then you can kind of look down on your camera if it's on your chest, and you can see, you get kind of a sense of like how much of the lens is pointing up at you. So you can like use your joystick, assuming you don't touch the screen, which I've done many times, and you can mess with the joystick, and you can get the angle right. And the thing that's really great about that is whether you go down or you come up, you might change what's in the shot, but you're never ever going to change the angle, the up and down angle. This is really important, and I know people probably are going to miss that. It's one of the reasons I made this video. I had to watch an hour and a half long. It felt like an hour and a half. It's probably more like 40 minutes, but I had to watch tons of videos to figure out how to do that. That and focal mode, I had to like study those things way before I even got it and before I bought the cameras to make sure that these are things that could be done. Because you can definitely lock horizon mode with the Action 4 and the GoPro, and stuff like that. So that's a big one. Make sure that you set that. Global rotation speed. Now this one's pretty debatable. Um, the rotation speed. So the gimbal rotation speed is how fast does your gimbal respond to your turn. So the reason I put here slow, sometimes medium, fast for mountain bike. This is actually a setting that I regularly change depending on what I'm doing. When I am regularly biking and my bike is really just a big dolly, a big camera dolly, and the camera's attached to my chest, and it's really not about the cycling experience. It's about, showing off where I am. Uh, I like slow because I'm on the road. I'm not, if at most I'm taking a fast, 45-degree turn. Um, I'm not, doing switchbacks. I'm not changing the angle of the camera radically at all. And I don't want the jarring that comes when you reach the end of the gimbal. So I don't, you guys know this, but like if you reach the end of your gimbal, and it kind of, it has to move, right? So you get this kind of jarring non-cinematic, change. And I noticed that because I was out on a road bike ride and I had it set to fast. This is, by the way, something you can set in webcam mode. A lot of these settings you can't set in webcam mode, but many of them you can. This is one of the ones you can actually change while you're still streaming. And so I changed it to mountain bike mode. And mountain bike mode to me is like as fast as possible around a berm. This is still not fast enough. In fact, the other consideration that I made about whether I wanted to get an Action 4 for my mountain bike streams versus the Pocket 3, one of the primary considerations was how fast could I capture the berm, and things like that. These switchbacks, these really intense, amazing moments, right? They are the when you have a gimbal, period, uh, you lose the action immersion because honestly, I'm gonna say this is somewhat controversial. When you pick a Pocket 3 to stream action, you're choosing to have immersion and cinematic effect have priority over not immersion. You're choosing to have cinematic effect and experience over POV immersion, right? And that was a very hard thing. I should probably make a video just about that. That was a very hard decision for me because people were like, "Oh, you can't get the true mountain bike experience with the Pocket 3. It's got a gimbal. You'll never get it with a gimbal because a gimbal can never capture the radical angles of those berm turns and and the people who usually argue for that action immersion are usually also the POV stuff. They're usually also arguing to have an action camera because they want the handlebars in the thing and they want to see their hand. They want a true POV experience. And there's lots of YouTubers who do that, and downhillers and stuff. It's not as fun if you don't see their handlebar. They're them doing their thing, and it was very hard for me to make that decision because I love those videos, but I asked my community, and most of my community just wants to be out in nature. The fact that I'm on the trail is nice and all, and they would rather have it look more like a Star Wars Endor Moon speeder race through the forest than, which by the way is 100% gimbal. you know, I mean, if can you? I mean, they still have POV on those those jungle forest speeders, right? There's still POV in that action. If they tried to like do every single jostling thing, you'd get sick. So, and that's the other thing people complain about is that they sometimes get sick when they with some of that motion stuff. So I chose to do slow for pretty much everything, and the reason for that is um, it just makes for a much more immersive, easier to watch experience. Period across the board. It's just so much easier. It's actually easier on your bandwidth because this shot is changing at a much more slow, it's a much slower rate, a much more predictable rate. So the encoder has a better chance of getting higher quality because the gimbal is keeping the shot largely the same as much as possible. So it seriously improves the quality of the frame. by making it a slower shot. And I would rather have a much higher quality frame than a frame that's getting, jostled around all the time. But if I had 4K and I was not streaming it, maybe I would want to, capture it as a recording. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm live streaming. So sometimes I'll put it on medium. I have toyed with the more jarring ones for mountain bikes for one reason only. The switchbacks, when you go around the corner of a berm, when you go around the corner of a berm on a switchback or something like that, slow mode or even medium mode is nowhere near fast enough to catch up. It just can't. And so you're like you're in a tight switchback. After the switchback is done, while you're on the straight to get to the next switchback, the gimbal is still kind of slowly coming around, right? And it might get to pointing straight by the time you hit the next berm. That is not fast enough. So for the mountain biking, I have set it to fast for that reason only. It makes the footage a lot more jarring, but not as jarring as it would be if it were in Action 4. So I'm good with that. And again, this is a setting you can set on your own. And I already talked about this, but tap the, let me go ahead and put this on here. So tap the power button for the DJI Mic to enable wind noise reduction. We already talked about that. So we don't have much more to talk about here. That is it. This has been a rather long video, but there's a lot of live streamers out there that are experimenting with Pocket 3s, and the Pocket 3 is extremely expensive, $520. It's more than double the price of the Action 4. So if I can add yet another video to talk about my experience about the settings for the Pocket 3 before people drop that kind of money on it, so be it. I love it. The Pocket 3 is hands down the best camera I've ever owned for all sorts of things. The fact that it doubles as what I consider the quality. You can make your own judgment, but I consider the quality of the DJI Pocket 3 to be every bit as good as some of the mirrorless cameras that people use for desktop streaming, like I'm doing right now. And this stream is being done by the same. I am doing this video from exactly the same camera that I use to go IRL streaming. It has a quick release. I just pull it off and put it on my other rig, and I just have one camera to mess with. One camera and the DJI Mic 2. Big advocate for those things. I have nothing to do with DJI. I'm politically, they have other considerations. I don't want to end on that, but let me just say, but I just want to say I'm not a sponsor for DJI. But the Pocket 3 has been an amazing experience. I've been really having a lot of fun with it. Yesterday I had 3 people tell me, and I'm quoting them, "You have by far the best bike stream on Twitch." And I would not say that. I'm not a videographer. I've been watching a lot of other bike streamers, and their quality is amazing. Almost all of them have the Gunrunner. There's only one person I know of who's using the Pocket 3, and they're going through many of these same things. And in fact, to be completely fair, it was a professional videographer. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to. It was a professional videographer that said that they were excited about to try the Pocket 3 that led me down the path to using the Pocket 3 myself. I'm so glad that I listened to that suggestion and I invested the money in it. At this point, I regret having bought the 2 Action 4s, and I probably will sell them. Although they may come in handy for like multi-shot sort of things, and stuff like that. So hopefully this has been somewhat educational. If you have other questions or suggestions about the settings of your Pocket 3 and how to make that work, please let me know. Eventually I'll put a playlist together that's got all of my IRL stuff in it, so you can look at that together. But it's not a priority. Right now we're doing beginner boost and a bunch of other things. So stay tuned to the channel. This channel is about outdoor activities and IRL streaming in addition to coding and getting a job. So my YouTube channel is a little weird that way. I break the algorithm because I'm not just one thing. So again, thank you for watching and passing on the information. Hopefully that helps you out. Oh wait, let me go back here and say that from this position, because otherwise my thumbnail is going to be screwed up. All right, yeah. What are the chances that the thumbnail is going to be taken from this section right here? I can take a picture and take a thumbnail. Hey, I need to. Oh, you know what I should do? I should make a button so that it takes a picture. It takes like a picture from OBS. I need that. I need to put that in there. Well, I'll have to do that in another stream. Bye.